So it looks like President Biden has decided what to do with the U.S. attorneys installed by Donald Trump. And this is a good news story, because what President Biden has decided to do will undoubtedly move us in the direction of justice. And justice matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So there's an important story that sort of flew under the radar yesterday with all the hullabaloo surrounding the impeachment hearings. Is hullabaloo still a thing? The story has to do with how President Biden has decided to deal with all of the Trump-installed U.S. attorneys, and it is such a good story. First, let's turn to some of the headlines. This from NBC News. Biden's Justice Department to ask nearly all Trump-era U.S. attorneys to resign. Okay, that's a good headline, but what caught my attention is the nearly all part, because it's entirely usual for an incoming president, an incoming administration, to ask for the resignations of all U.S. attorneys because they serve at the pleasure of the president. They are what we call at-will appointees. So it's not at all unusual for President Biden to ask all U.S. attorneys to submit their resignations. Most administrations, both Republican and Democrat, do that. But the nearly all part caught my attention. So here's how the Washington Post reported out the same story. Biden administration will ask remaining Trump-appointed U.S. attorneys to step down, with few exceptions. Here's what the Washington Post said about that. The Biden administration is expected to ask remaining U.S. attorneys appointed by President Donald Trump and confirmed by the Senate to begin stepping down. Though the Trump-appointed federal prosecutor investigating Hunter Biden, President Biden's son, as well as the prosecutor reviewing the FBI's 2016 investigation of the Trump campaign, will be allowed to continue their work, a Justice Department official said. Folks, why is this such a good story? I'll talk about that in a minute. First, let me explain the process. As I say, anytime a new president takes over, typically he will ask for the resignations of all of the U.S. attorneys, because those are presidential appointees. Then what happens is people throw their hat in the ring. They literally apply to be U.S. attorney. Some of my friends have applied to be U.S. attorney for the District of Columbia U.S. Attorney's Office. Some of my friends have applied to be U.S. attorney in Virginia at the Eastern District of Virginia U.S. Attorney's Office. They throw their hat in the ring. Let me just add as a footnote, I opted not to throw my hat in the ring for any U.S. attorney position, and I'll talk more about why that is in the future. But after people apply, then they are interviewed. And here's who they're interviewed by. They're interviewed by the senators or the staffers of the senators in the jurisdiction where that U.S. attorney's office is located. This is the norm. This is the tradition. So the senators from Virginia, for example, will interview the people who have applied to be U.S. attorney in Virginia, and then the senators will make recommendations to the White House, to the president, about who they support to be the U.S. attorney in Virginia. That's how the process goes. So here's why this story is such a good story. Because as we heard, President Biden asked for the resignations of, or will ask for the resignations of all the Trump-appointed U.S. attorneys. A good thing, because Trump and Bill Barr were not known for picking the best and the brightest and the most honest and the most ethical and the most law-abiding U.S. attorneys, people who fought to do favors, though, for Roger Stone and Mike Flynn and others. So this is exactly the right move by Joe Biden, asking for all of these resignations, but with two exceptions. And it's the two exceptions that are the inspirational part of this story. Because as you heard from that Washington Post reporting, those two exceptions are, one, John Durham. That's the U.S. attorney who has been investigating the FBI opening an investigation into the Trump campaign, the whole Trump-Russia thing. And think about it. When the FBI started interviewing the Trump campaign, President Obama and Vice President Biden were in place, were in office. So in theory, depending on what U.S. Attorney John Durham finds, it could end up being critical of, among others, Joe Biden and the administration he was part of. And Joe Biden said, I want that work to continue. I'm not going to interfere with it. I'm not going to remove John Durham, that U.S. attorney, and the other U.S. attorney he pledged not to remove is the one in Delaware investigating his son, Hunter. Think about that. The results of that investigation could very well be bad for Hunter Biden if that U.S. attorney finds some wrongdoing. And Joe Biden, our president, said, I will not interfere in those two investigations by removing those U.S. attorneys. I don't even want to give the appearance of interference in those two investigations. So those U.S. attorneys will be allowed to continue. Can I just tell you that this is the government we want? This is the government we, the people, deserve. Joe Biden making decisions based on what's right and what's fair and what's just and what's honorable, not just what's politically expedient or what is in his self-interest or his son's self-interest. This is inspirational. This is the kind of government that gives me patriotic goosebumps. And they're not always easy to raise on me. After 4 years of Bill Barr and Donald Trump making decisions about the Department of Justice and about U.S. attorneys' offices that were in their interest to protect them, to protect Donald Trump's family, this is beyond refreshing. This is the government we, the people, deserve. And isn't it wonderful to have good news stories on the justice front? Because justice matters. And as always, folks, thank you for tuning in to these daily videos. I know I've talked about this before, but we're over on Patreon. Team Justice is on Patreon, patreon.com. And we are in the final throes of the letter that we've drafted, and we are about to start collecting up signatures to all 50 state attorneys general to urge all 50 states to use their prosecutorial resources to investigate and, where appropriate, prosecute Trump, Kushner, Pence, and anybody else who bears legal responsibility, criminal responsibility for preventable coronavirus deaths. Because as a former career homicide prosecutor, I see criminal liability there. And we at Team Justice are about to urge formally in writing in a scorched earth justice campaign every state attorney general to open an investigation. If you want to be part of that team, if you want to be part of that effort, please feel free to come over to patreon.com and join us. There will be more information, more concrete information about that project in the very near term. As always, folks, please stay safe, please stay tuned, and I look forward to talking with you all again tomorrow.